In the hush of a candlelit chamber, the soft tremor of flame danced across stone walls, casting long, quivering shadows that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of her own heartbeat. A young woman sat hunched over parchment, the quill in her hand as delicate and uncertain as a bird poised on a winter branch. Each stroke of ink felt heavier than the last, a burden of secrecy pressed into letters that could ignite scandal or vanish silently into another's hands. Her fingers trembled, not from cold, but from the gravity of words that must carry affection without revealing it, devotion yet disguised in silence. The scent of melted tallow clung to the air, mingling with the faint aroma of pressed herbs left from the evening meal, a subtle reminder of hearth and home outside the fragile privacy of this chamber. Beyond the shuttered window, the bells of Compline tolled solemnly, their sound rolling across narrow cobbled streets where men laughed and shouted in taverns, unburdened by the careful measurements of desire and discretion that governed her life. Each echo of iron against stone seemed to underscore the difference between the freedom of the world outside and the hidden world she inhabited, where love was a clandestine craft, and every gesture a careful negotiation with authority and propriety. She dipped her quill again, tracing symbols and metaphors, threading them through phrases that spoke of yearning while hiding its shape. Every loop of ink was a stitch in an intricate embroidery, each flourish a prayer that the heart she placed on the page might survive the scrutiny of her family, survive the games of courtly expectation, survive the shadowed paths of society that left women voiceless. On the table beside her, a seal of crimson wax rested, pressed with the crest of her lineage, a mark of ownership, duty, and the very walls that threatened to cage her desires. Her hand hovered over it, trembling with the knowledge that once pressed and sent, this letter would become a lantern carried into darkened corridors of the court, illuminating feelings that could inspire joy, scandal, or ruin. Her chest tightened, a quiet rhythm of fear and hope. To write was to risk defiance, to whisper rebellion through ink, to create a small, secret world where her voice might speak freely. And yet, the act itself was sacred, a testament to her inner life, to the love that insisted on being felt even where it was forbidden. She folded the letter with reverent care, tying it with a slender thread, as one might secure a prayer, a talisman against misfortune. The candlelight caught on the folds, casting tiny highlights like captured stars in the dim room. In that suspended moment, the air felt charged with possibility, the fragile promise of connection, the quiet pulse of courage, the shimmering tension between obedience and desire. Outside, the city carried on, indifferent to the hidden dramas unfolding within its walls. Inside, the young woman lingered, her gaze tracing the shadows, listening to the tolling bells, feeling the weight of her secret, and imagining the ripple her words might make once they stepped beyond the chamber. The letter became more than ink on parchment. It became a vessel of longing, a beacon of rebellion, and a reminder that even in a world bound by law and tradition, a woman's heart could carve its own path, fragile yet unyielding, like a candle burning steadfast against the night. Beneath the fluttering banners of the great castle hall, the air shimmered with heat and the mingled scents of roasted meats, spiced wine and beeswax candles, each inhalation carrying both indulgence and tension. The clamor of 100 voices rolled through the vaulted chamber, laughter bouncing off stone walls worn smooth by generations of revelry. In this theater of feasts and tournaments, courtship was performed like a delicate play, where no word could be trusted and every glance carried the weight of unseen contracts. A knight lowered his gaze, offering a carved wooden token with trembling hands, while across the trestle tables a lady allowed her veil to slip. A seeming accident orchestrated to capture attention, to invite recognition without invitation. The music swelled, harps and lutes threading through the noise, a subtle cadence that drew bodies into movement and hearts into silence. Every step of the dance, every curtsy, every careful tilt of the head was a statement, an act measured against custom propriety, and the ever-present watch of eyes both approving and critical. In corners shadowed by tapestries, whispered exchanges carried more meaning than the booming cheers of the hall. A brush of fingers over goblets, the fleeting catch of a smile, the tilt of a head, all became language. For the women, each gesture was laden with consequence. To smile too widely was to tempt rumor. To linger in eye contact too long risked scandal, and yet to hold back entirely could mean the loss of both opportunity and love. Playing the marriage games demanded precision, courage, and an unspoken understanding of power. It was a path walked along the edge of a blade, where a single misstep might bind a woman for life in obligations she did not choose. And yet, even within such constraint, small defiance flickered like fragile candlelight. A shared joke over spilled wine, a secret nod, a whispered verse meant for no one but the intended. In these moments, love revealed its most dangerous beauty. Daring, fleeting, yet unmistakably alive. The hall, with its banners and laughter, became both stage and crucible, where the dance of desire and duty entwined, and where each choice, each fleeting glance, carried the possibility of joy or sorrow. In this delicate interplay, one understood that the power of affection, though constrained, could illuminate the darkness of obligation, a single spark in a hall of shadows, as precious and perilous as flame itself. In the garden beyond the cloister walls, dawns still clung to frost-tipped roses, their petals glistening with tiny crystals that caught the first pale light. The damp scent of earth rose in soft waves, mingling with the subtle perfume of lavender and sage planted along the hedgerows. Here, young women huddled in hushed circles, their voices no louder than the whisper of wind through the branches, sharing riddles of love passed down by mothers who had learned caution alongside desire. Fragments of verses penned by men they might never see beyond a fleeting procession or a courtly glance, read aloud in secret, each syllable folded into memory like a treasured talisman. A maid plucked rose petals one by one, murmuring under her breath, he loves me not," her fingers brushing the soft blush of petals, as if seeking a sign from some unseen arbiter of fate. Nearby, another girl tied silk ribbons to a low-hanging branch, their bright colors a quiet prayer, an offering to a promise still unspoken, suspended between hope and fear. Their laughter, careful and muted, drifted among the hedges like birds in retreat, cautious of prying ears that might turn joy into scandal. Each glance, each shared smile, was measured against the invisible weight of duty, alliances written in ink and coin, contracts that often outweighed the tender stirrings of the heart. Yet in these stolen hours, among thorns and blossoms, a fleeting freedom flourished. They rehearsed gestures, whispered verses, and imagined worlds in which their words and choices belonged to themselves. Love became a private act of courage, a rebellion enacted in silence. In the soft brush of hands over petals, in the deliberate arrangement of flowers along the garden paths, the sun lowered behind distant walls, casting long shadows over stone fountains where water caught the last amber light. As dusk deepened, their voices receded into the growing darkness, retreating like birds into the safety of night. In their absence, the garden held its secrets, petals pressed between folds of memory ribbons, fluttering in the chill and the quiet pulse of hearts, daring to hope that love could be more than inheritance, more than contract, more than duty. Here, within these hedges and blooms, the women of the cloister discovered that even within constraint, the soul could taste the sweetness of choice, however fleeting, before the night closed over their whispered dreams. On the eve of midsummer, the night air trembled with anticipation as firelight leaped skyward, painting the villagers' faces in flickering gold and shadow. The scent of smoke and pine mingled with the sweetness of crushed herbs, carried on the gentle wind that rustled through the festival grounds. Women and men wove between the towering bonfires, their voices entangled in song, each note a thread connecting heart to heart. Each step a rhythm on the packed earth that seemed to echo through centuries of celebration. Laughter rose and fell like wind through reeds, yet beneath the joy lay ritual, subtle and sacred. Hands brushed over garlands of sage and rosemary. Whispered vows floated beneath torchlight, and tokens of affection were exchanged under the watchful gaze of saints painted on weathered shrines, their eyes seeming to bless or judge in equal measure. For some, this dance was the closest they would come to choosing their own beloved. A fleeting hour in which desire could be acknowledged without the constraints of contract or family decree. For others, it was a final taste of liberty, the last warmth of midsummer before duty. Duty that arrived, cloaked in dowries and alliances, sealed their path. A young girl stood slightly apart from the swirl of dancers, a wreath of ivy slipping from her hair as she watched her betrothed laugh with another. the sound mingling with the crackle of fire and the low murmur of evening prayers. The flames hissed and sparked, their light flickering across her skin, and the smoke carried the sharp, earthy scent into her hair and lungs, a reminder of the life she inhabited and the freedom she had not yet claimed. She wondered if joy was truly permitted for women like her, if love could ever arrive uncloaked in fear, unbound from obligation. As the embers dimmed and the last sparks drifted skyward, the music softened and the laughter of the crowd receded into the night. Shadows lengthened over the festival grounds, leaving only memory in their wake. In that hush, the weight of promises, kept or broken, settled gently among the ashes, as tangible and fragile as the charred garlands strewn at the fire's edge. She touched the ivy in her hair, feeling the cool, dewy leaves and the faint perfume of summer. A reminder that desire and duty would always intersect in the lives of women. Yet in the fleeting heat of midsummer, amid song, fire, and ritual, she tasted the fragile, defiant sweetness of choice, a momentary liberty that would linger in her heart long after the festival ended, whispering that even within the strictures of expectation, the soul could claim its own fleeting celebration of love. The great hall was alive with ceremony, its vaulted beams echoing the measured cadence of voices raised in ritual and song. Parchment rustled as it was read aloud. Words meticulously scribed not by the bride herself, but by clerks who bore the weight of contracts more than affection. Each syllable bound her life to a man she had scarcely seen, each sentence a tether tightening around freedom she had once imagined as limitless. Guests murmured approval, raising cups that gleamed in candlelight. The clatter of knives striking trenchers like distant thunder beneath the shadowed arches. Yet beneath the outward celebration, the bride's mind drifted to memory, to laughter shared at the village well, to the sweet taste of summer rain on bare arms, 2 letters once secret, now burned in quiet defiance of prying eyes. Marriage in these halls was a covenant of estates rather than hearts, an exchange in which women were bartered like dowries, their voices absorbed into liturgical cadence and ritualized vows. Yet even in the suffocating silence imposed by ceremony, a subtle defiance persisted. A pressed flower, hidden in the folds of her girdle, carried the scent of freedom and memory. She hummed a song only she could hear as the priest's words washed over her. The notes threading through stone and timber, a private rebellion against the authority that sought to define her life. Each gesture, each suppressed sigh, became a quiet assertion that though the ceremony sealed one story, another still stirred beneath the surface, delicate yet insistent. The bride's gaze wandered across the hall, taking in the gilded tapestries and the sea of faces caught between expectation and curiosity. She imagined the invisible paths her thoughts would follow once the ceremony concluded, corridors of memory and imagination where she could still claim small victories of choice, of expression, of spirit. Even as the final words of union were pronounced, the deeper narrative had only just begun, for every silence bore the weight of possibility. Every restraint contained a seed of resistance. In the hush that followed, where the hall seemed to inhale and exhale as one the promise of future agency lingered, subtle as a candle flicker in a darkened chamber waiting for the season when it might bloom fully unbound and true. And so, even amid obligation and expectation, the bride carried within her the quiet insistence that life, like the hidden flower, like the whispered song, could endure, grow, and one day flourish beyond the constraints imposed upon her.